What's up, guys? We're back out here tonight. I'm going to give you guys an update real quick. So I fabricated some gussets. They go underneath like so, and they weld onto the frame, and then there's a cross member here, so they'll weld here and all the way around here, and that will keep this from moving side to side, vibration, all those things. So it may be a little overkill, but if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly. So I'm going to go ahead and get all set up. I'll just go ahead and get these welded out. We'll give you guys a look, and then that's going to wrap up the structure for the Connex brackets. Then I've got to start putting together the puzzle piece of putting the decking back in, and I've got to cut some of it, piece everything back in, put the screws back in, so then we can jump over to our winch mount plate and try to get that wrapped up tomorrow. So that's the plan. So let's go ahead and crawl under there and get it wrapped up. Okay, guys, so we got those all welded out. The last thing I want to do right now is crawl back under that trailer, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for you guys so that you can see what they look like, and because I'm that kind of guy. So I've welded around that all the way. It is tied with the frame on both sides, so that's going to keep it from moving. So I don't think it's going anywhere. I did that on all four of them. So now we're ready to get the boards back in here, start figuring out where they go. Luckily I did number them when I pulled them off, so I should be able to just throw them back on, figure out where I got to cut them, start putting screws back in it. Not a woodworker, but we'll do what we can. So I'll get those back in here, see if we can't start putting this puzzle back together. What's up, guys? Let's give you guys an update on what's going on with our gooseneck trailer here. So the customer came out today, had a little chat on some things. He checked out the progress we've made on the trailer. I think he seems pretty happy with it, so that's good. But he's got a whole bunch of other things he wants done, so let's walk through what that is. So he has these little jib cranes, and they're rated at 1 ton, and they basically just use a hydraulic cylinder to raise and lower that. We are going to retrofit this with some 2,000-pound winches, so that's going to be pretty cool. So he's got 2 of those. He wants one on either side of the toolbox here. He also wants a bracket that straddles a cross member over here with a D-ring on it so that he can use a snatch block, so that when he comes off of his winch to the snatch block, it's not such a steep angle. That's only for certain scenarios. The other thing he wants is we're working on our winch mount. So I'll show you guys. I've already got the brackets cut. It took me a little bit of brainstorming to figure this one out. I've got a piece of 3/8 plate that's going to mount here. The bolt holes are going to straddle this piece of channel. That's going to be perfect, because that is going to be a nice rigid place for this baby to sit, and it should be able to support whatever he pulls up here, no problem. But you got to think, this structure here is basically what pulls whatever weight is on that deck. So I think that's going to be a good place for it. So I've got the plate cut. I've also got 2 little gussets that'll weld to the top of this tube that the fair lead will mount to guide the cable. So that should work pretty good. I can't really get that trailer in here. It's a 30-foot deck, and I can't really get it in here conveniently. I'm dealing with a little bit of tight quarters around here. So what I'm going to do is I'll probably fire up my engine drive over there, and it needs to be ran anyway. I don't like going too long without running it. So it'll be good to stretch the legs on her. So we'll go ahead and fire up the Trailblazer and probably just stick weld that one out. I'm going to go ahead and get all set up, and I'm going to shear this. We'll get it out there, and I'll give you guys a look at what we got going. Plate is all fabricated. Holes all line up with our winch, so we're good to go there. But I got this up on the top of the trailer, and where the structure is on the front of the gooseneck, this will not slide in where I want it to. Because of the way the flanges sit on the beam, there's no way for me to get it in there without either cutting that structure or what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this in half. I'm going to put this in the iron worker. I'm going to shear this right in half. I will bevel both these joints, and then I will go ahead and weld that up. After I get it in place, I'll grind this flat, and you'll never know any different. But that's how we're going to have to do it. For us to get it in there where I want it, I'm just going to have to do that. It actually works out really well because there is that piece of channel that sits right here. So I'll actually be able to weld the root of this weld right to the channel, and then I'll also weld up underneath the channel on the bottom side of this. It'll make more sense once I get it up there and I show you what I'm doing. Okay guys, so here's the deal. We've got our piece here. We did cut it and shear. We've got it all beveled. So this one's going to weld here. We'll put the other section in here. We'll be able to weld it here, and then up underneath we'll weld it, and then we'll stitch weld it up here. That should be plenty strong for that 12,000 pound winch, especially where it's tied all in with this structure. Now all that's left to do, I'm going to fire up the Trailblazer, slap on my hood, and start tacking this and fitting it. I've got to maintain 9 15/16 from bolt center to bolt center to make sure that our winch fits in this hole pattern. Now that I've split it, it could move, so I just need to make sure I double check that. But I'm going to go ahead and start getting this tacked up and fit in place. We are using 1/8 inch 70/18, going with a little bit heavier rod so that we can speed it up. We'll go ahead and see what we can do. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is try to get a tack on this corner here, and I'm just looking to see that it's flush. Trying to make sure everything's flush and tight. I am running it at 120 amps. Okay. I love it when a plan falls apart. The trailer was not built square, so I've got some major gap osis going here. And looks like my piece was a little long, so I'm going to trim about 1/4 inch off the end of this. That should give me enough that I can drop this piece in and it will weld up tight. So I'm going to go shear this and then I'll come back. Alright, I've checked my measurement and we are pretty much right on the money. So the hard part is going to be just holding that where it needs to stay. Okay, I'm going to tack this side and go get a hammer and show it a little love. Like it. Now we're going to tack it. I am going to use a clamp to fit the middle of this. There's a little bit of a hump, so I'm going to use a clamp to get that flush. Clamp that down, tack it, tack these corners. And then I'm going to get the winch up here. We'll check the fit. As long as everything checks out, we'll go ahead and start welding it out. But I don't want to just go ahead and weld it out without knowing. I know because I've done it before and it's come back to bite me. Clamp doesn't fit in here real well. I can't get it to do what I want this way. So I'm going to tell you guys another method that I use sometimes, and it's called hot tacking. So what I'll do is I'll put a tack here and then I'll snap out. While the tack is still red, you take a hammer and you smack it. What that does is, while it's still just cooling and it's still just a little bit pliable, the tack, it will actually drop the plate and then it will cool, and it will actually cool just at the right time to where, as you practice this, you can get fairly close, fairly accurate with it. If I hit it the first time and it doesn't drop as much as I want it to, I can hit it again, but you got to be quick. So we'll give it a try. You definitely want to be ready. Hey, that one actually turned out pretty dang good. So I'm going to do one more right here. Same thing, there's a little bit of a hump. I want to be ready. Money. So there you go. Something else you can practice, hot tacking. If you're fitting something like this and you want to get your fit just right, nice and flush, try hot tacking. Just make sure you hit it while it's still just barely cooling. So now I'm going to check the fit on the winch. It's kind of a big old miserable son of a gun. That's how they are when they get this big. The holes on the actual casting are threaded, so I got to go underneath, make sure all the holes line up. So I'm going to go underneath, I'm going to check, make sure all the holes line up, and if they do, we'll be ready to weld this out. All right, holes are right on the money. Typically with something like this, I'll overburn my holes about 1/16 of an inch just to give it just a little bit more slop, so that I've got a little play to where I can not have to worry about that sort of thing. So I'm gonna tack these other corners to keep everything from moving, hold everything in place. We'll jump into time lapse and weld it out, and then we'll come back and give you guys a look. All right, guys, so it's getting dark. I'm going to try to give you a look at what's going on here. Give you a look at what we got done. We did get the winch plate in. It's all welded out. I do have a little bit of cleanup to do still, but I think we got it. So now that we got that done, we can move on to the next thing. I think tomorrow I'm going to try to mount these plates for the 2 jib cranes. See if I can get that done, but let's give you guys a look. Hopefully you can see it okay because it is dark, but I'll show you guys. All right, so did run a stitch weld pattern on the front where it ties to the tube. Welded both sides. I did triple pass that one there where it ties to the channel. Then if you look underneath here, I did weld that one, and that's a triple pass as well because it had a little bit of gap. Got it welded to the channel there. Got it welded to the channel there. And there. So it's all tied in. I don't think it's going anywhere. Like I said, I do have some cleanup to do. It's good to get that one done. That's one thing checked off the list there. So tomorrow we'll try to get those crane plates mounted. I'm gonna have to brainstorm on that because they gotta lift 2,000 pounds, which isn't, it's not crazy, but I mean, you know, it's a considerable amount of weight. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to let you guys know what kind of ideas I've come up with. So catch you guys tomorrow. Okay guys, we're back out here tonight and I'm gonna try and hurry and get these done tonight. So as I was thinking about this, brainstorming about it, I did come up with an idea and I think it's gonna work pretty good. I feel good about it. So he brought me these plates. So I don't have to fabricate these, but I am gonna modify them. So I was trying to think of how I wanted to do this. And I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure the gap between these two cross members. He wants it close to the corner. I'm gonna measure the gap between these. And I'm gonna trim the edges of this plate. And I will drop it in here and weld it here. So it's gonna be welded to two cross members. That should be plenty strong enough to be able to hold the 2,000 pounds or the 1,000 pounds that it's rated for. So that way we'll be able to slide the boards back in. I'll run a drill bit up through the bottom of the holes to drill through the wood. And then our base plate has the same hole pattern as these. We'll run bolts through it and sandwich that together. It's gonna be solid. So that's the plan. So I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna get this all laid out. I'm gonna go shear this. I'll come back out here, clean the paint off of these, and then right back to welding. So I'm gonna fire the Trailblazer back up and just start welding these in. So maybe you guys have noticed, but I am wearing a new Western Welding shirt. This one is one of the cotton ones. My gray one is an FR. FR is quite a bit more expensive, but I wanna see how the cotton ones hold up compared to the FR. If there's not a huge difference, then I'll probably just keep buying the cotton, but I wanna compare and see. I'll make sure and let you guys know. I'm also gonna try to refrain from keeping my pen in my pocket and throwing it in the dirty clothes so that my wife can wash it, and then I end up with a big stain. So, gonna try to refrain from that. Anyways, get these all prepped up and let's go to welding. All right guys, so you can see we got our cross members cleaned up. We've buffed the paint off. Got my piece trimmed to where it's gonna fit down in there just perfect. It'll be nice and flush so we can put the 2x6s on top of it. So I got the arc captain strung out here. I've got it plugged in on 110. I just want to see how it does. I'm running 332 7018. We'll give it a go tonight. Okay. Sometimes you gotta get creative. We do have a little bit of cleanup to do, but we got that all welded out, top side and bottom. And just so you guys know, this rod that you can get at like Walmart or Cal Ranch, it's 7018, but you're supposed to be able to run it with AC or DC. It's garbage. Don't waste your money. Somebody gave it to me and I'm appreciative, but it's garbage. I welded about half of this, and that's what, 10 inches? In 10 inches, you should have seen the amount of pinholes I was getting. I switched over to my bowler, and it ran like a dream. Now, I'm not saying that all Lincoln rod is garbage, because Lincoln makes a lot of really good rod. I'm just saying the cheap stuff that you can buy at like Home Depot or Cal Ranch, any place like that that's not a welding store, I would stay away from it, because it runs like crap, and you get a lot of pinholes. So if you're looking for a good job, a nice, smooth, pretty weld that you can have confidence in, just go to a welding store and buy a small package from there. Anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. All right, so I'm gonna clean this up with a grinder, and I'm gonna drop the boards back in. It's just about time for me to go in the house, so I did get one knocked out, so that's good. So I'll finish cleaning this one up. I'll make sure the boards fit in there okay, and I'll probably run the drill bit through the wood so the pattern's all there, and then we'll set our stand on top of it, make sure everything looks good, and then tomorrow we'll tackle the other one. So I'm not going to go through the same process of this with you guys tomorrow. You guys have seen how I do one of them, so I'll probably just knock that one out tomorrow. And then the next thing we'll have to work on is our D-ring for using a snatch block there in the middle of the trailer. I'll probably just do some sort of a similar bracket as this. I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight, so I'll catch you guys later once I get on the D-ring. What's up, guys? We're still on the gooseneck. Let me show you where we're at. So I did get a piece of plate burned for the D-ring bracket. So I've got it all laid out. We're ready to put it in the brake and break it. Once I get this broke, we'll go over to the trailer and I'll show you what I got planned. By the time we're done, this trailer is going to look like something from Transformers. Okay. Have I mentioned that I can't wait for that new brake to get here? Sometimes you get lucky. Check it. Sometimes you get lucky. All right. We'll go over to the trailer now and I'll show you guys what I got planned. All right. I'm actually using the Arc Captain MiG 200 tonight. See how it does. I did weld out the other crane plate and it welded fine. So far, so good. So I do have some lines on this so I know how deep to put it. So I'm just gonna try to get that settled. I'll drop that first, and it probably won't be the last time. Because that's how I like to do it. We do it nice because we do it twice. I'm trying to do this without dropping it on my toe. You know, it's a fun one when getting just a tack on there is worth celebrating. Yeah, that's good times. Now that that's tacked into place, this backside is going to be kind of fun. I'm probably going to have to lay my head on the deck here and get this. I didn't want to have to take the toolbox off, unbolt it, pull it off, and then pull the boards off all the way. So I've just got something wedged underneath the boards, and it's enough that I can get in there. It's just going to be a little tricky, so I figured that'll save me some time having to tear everything apart to get to it. But I will be able to weld it here, and then up underneath. I left it just a little bit long past the cross member, just like I did on the other plates, so that I can weld on the bottom as well. So it ain't going anywhere. Once this is welded out, I'm gonna go buy a D-ring, one of the weld-on D-rings just from Tractor Supply, and I'll weld it onto this plate. All right, so I'll bounce into time lapse and I'll get this welded out, and then once I get it done, I'll come back and give you a look. All right, guys, we're on to our last task here, I think, other than painting and reassembly and all that stuff. The last thing that we have to fab up on this is we've got our strap bracket here, and the customer wants it between these two wheels, and it will fit perfect in here. I've slid this back and forth to make sure it doesn't rub the wheels, and it does clear. So this is going to weld in right here. So I'm going to get this tacked, and I'm going to weld a stitch pattern here to the outside frame, and then put some just stitch welds on these cross members up underneath. So that shouldn't be too bad. I did back the trailer back in the shop here, and I am using dual shield, so it should be a little bit quicker. This is another one of those fun ones to do by yourself. getting tight in here. You can sure get that done a lot quicker with tool shield. So we'll clean that up with a wire wheel and it's ready to paint. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. There's no sense in putting you guys through that, so I'll go ahead and get the other side done and we'll come back to you guys when we're all ready to start putting it back together and throwing some paint on it. All right, time for an update. So we've got all the fabrication done on the trailer. I have taped it off where I'm going to paint it. So we are ready to mix up a pot of paint. It is nice and windy outside, so I'm probably just going to have to do it in here. We'll go ahead and get this sprayed. I'll show you guys what I've done as far as taping it off, the remaining fabrication stuff that I got done. So you can see I've got it taped off. I am going to spray this whole section just because you can see that it needs it. So I'll spray from here back. Same thing on that side. Spray our new plates here. We're going to spray our crane brackets. I still got some cleanup to do on that, but we're going to spray that too. So I'm going to mix up a pot of paint and get to spraying. All right, guys, one last update for today. We did get the trailer painted, but I did forget one thing. I forgot to weld the D-ring on that center support that I welded in. So I gotta go get a D-ring. I did paint it anyway. And the reason I did that is because the paint that I use, this black paint, is actually Rust-Oleum paint. Typically when I have to paint on trailers like this, I use Rust-Oleum, the stuff in the can, and then I can just thin it down with paint thinner, and it actually lays on here pretty good. There is no D-ring there yet, so I gotta go get a D-ring. I'm gonna hit that with a wire wheel, I'll weld it on, and then I'll be able to touch it up with spray paint because it's really just the same stuff. This stuff's just the stuff in a can, and it actually comes thicker, and you can thin it down to the thickness that you want. So that's the other reason I like using this paint, is because I can thin it down or I can keep it thick. And if I have to weld on it and I need to touch it up, then I don't want to have to mix a whole pot of paint, so I can just touch it up with a rattle can. So that's why I use that paint. All right, so that's going to be the last little bit for today. I think I'm going to go in the house. I've been out here all day trying to get this wrapped up. I'll catch up with you guys once I get the D-ring welded on and I get everything assembled, all the boards back on the trailer. We'll do a final walkthrough. See you then. I did pick up a weld-on D-ring, and if you guys need a D-ring on a trailer or something like that, and you're going to be putting a significant amount of force on it, I would recommend getting this type of D-ring. They make some D-rings that you can get that bolt on with carriage bolts, stuff like that. I would probably steer away from those if you can. If it has to go through wood, well, then I would build a sandwich plate that goes underneath just to get it as strong as possible. But for us, we want as strong as possible because we're going to be using this with the winch. So purchase this type of D-ring. They make different safe workload ratings that says right on the sticker. This one's rated for 5,000 pound working load, and it's got a 15,000 pound braking strength. So we'll go ahead and get this welded up to our center plate here. And I am going to have to go pick up some spray paint to touch it up. But the paint did turn out good. Pretty happy with how that looks. So that's going to be the objective. I've got to try to get that done, and then once I get that done, I actually do have two helpers out here today. You guys probably haven't seen much of Presley. This is my daughter, Presley. He likes to show up once in a while when his girlfriend's busy. So I do have some help today, so I'm hoping we can get the trailer all put back together. We do have to assemble our cranes as well, and there is a little bit of a modification we got to make to those so that we can mount the winches to those. We'll see if we can't get it all put back together and ready to go other than the cranes, because I got to pick up a part from the customer, but that should be it for this one. So we'll bounce right into our D-ring, get that welded out, and then we'll give you guys a look. Brass, come over here around this side and help me. Okay, so the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to take my little bracket here that welds on, that holds the D-ring in place, and I'm going to weld it center of the plate so it'll look just like that. So I'll just take my tape here so I know where to grind the paint off. I'll measure center and center. Now I know where to start. Turn around, watch your eyes. Going on, guys? We're back out in the shop today. We did just get a visit from the customer with the Gooseneck trailer, and they did drop off these cute little 2,000-pound Badland winches from Harbor Freight. So I'm going to mount those to this, but we do have a little bit of a complication. It was almost really slick, but there's one hole that's off. So I'll show you guys what we got. So if I put this winch on here and I match up those holes, you can see that they are right in line. But if you come down to this bottom one, it's about half a hole off. It was almost really smooth, really slick, but half a hole off. So originally my plan was to cut this plate off, burn a new plate, tap new holes, and weld it on. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, why don't I just weld up this hole? Now you take a risk doing this because sometimes it will heat harden the metal and then it's extremely hard to drill a hole. But I have done it before. It is possible, it is doable. So we're gonna try it on this first one. Worst case scenario, if it doesn't work, we cut the plate off and we go with our original plan A. So I'm gonna try welding this hole up, and then I will bolt the winch up with the 2 bolts. I'll put a center punch in it and mark where the 3rd hole needs to go. And then I'll go ahead and drill and tap it, and we'll mount the new winch. So that's the plan. We're gonna see if this works. Let's give it a try. No turning back now. So now I'm gonna grind that flat. I'm just gonna use a flap disc. We're good and flat there. So I'm gonna put the mounting bolts in the top, and then I'll take a transfer punch and I'll transfer punch this bottom hole, and then we'll see if we can drill through that baby. Okay, so here's the next issue. These holes, goodness, these holes are just barely too small. So I'm gonna take a drill bit and I'm gonna ream these holes out. These are metric bolts, and I think these are meant for a standard bolt. So we're just gonna ream that out with a drill bit a little bit so we can get the bolt through there so that we can try to get this mounted. Just always gotta be something. All right, so we got this mounted up with our 2 bolts on top. Now I'm going to take transfer punch that fits in there just right, and we'll just center this up. So we'll smack that, and then we'll take our center pop, drill a teeny hole to start with, and then step it up so that it doesn't walk on us. Once we get the hole drilled, we'll tap it, and we'll come back to you when we're tapping the hole. So getting her centered is the hardest part. But if you can get it straight, centered somewhat, you may not get it perfect, but if you can get it close, it'll make your life a lot easier. And then I'll back it out, clear the chips as much as I need to. Re-oil. That makes your life a lot easier. It always makes your life easier when you're tapping holes, as long as you don't snap the bit off. If you snap the tap off, now you got yourself a whole nother set of issues. And where we've welded this and the steel is probably harder than normal, you just want to go nice and slow. Don't get aggressive with it. All right, guys, we're going to give you one last look at the trailer and all the stuff that we've done to it. So we'll start off right here with the cranes. So these jib cranes are rated at 1 ton. They'll either do 1,000 or 1 ton. We retrofitted them with some 2,000-pound winches from Harbor Freight. We welded plates up underneath here that are welded to the frame to be able to support the weight. This is where it all started. These brackets here with these Connex couplers, that's kind of where the job started, and then it just kind of grew from there. So these couplings here, this allows the customer to set a Connex on the trailer and then lock it in. Okay, moving on, we've got our center bracket here with a D-ring in it. You can see I've just touched up the paint. That's for the winch. On there we had to add some gusseting, some plate, and tie it in with the frame so that it could support the amount of weight that the winch is rated for. Okay, if you come back here, we've got our rear brackets here, deck plate welded in, reinforced the frame, and we also reused these sections that have a strap bracket here. So we were able to reutilize these, welded these brackets in so that he could have a strap between the axles now. Little disclaimer, while I was in the process of putting these on, I did damage the cable on one and we had to get a new winch for one. I'm open with you guys. I tell you guys when I make mistakes because that's the reality. That's what happens sometimes. And that's how you learn from your mistakes. So I think that's about it. This was quite a large project. It was a really good project because it was unique. This is unlike anything that I've ever had to do to a trailer. So there was a lot of brainstorming that went into figuring out how to tie things in with the frame and be able to support a certain amount of weight because there's so many winches and rigging equipment here. And it's been a couple weeks since we put a video on, but we've been trying to get this trailer done and it was quite a large project. So you guys should see a couple more videos coming up here shortly. One last thing I did want to mention. Today is Memorial Day and it wouldn't be right if I didn't take a minute and recognize all of our military, our veterans. For Memorial Day, I personally just want to say to all those veterans out there, thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice, the sacrifices that your families make in order to keep this country safe. It's something that we don't take lightly. We appreciate it, and we know how blessed we are to live in a country where we get to do what we want to do because of you people. So thank you. So happy Memorial Day to all those veterans out there, and thanks for your service. So I think we'll just end it with that. And thanks again for watching. See you on the next one. and then I've got to start putting together. What's up, guys? As long as they do, we'll be able to rail. As long as the holes welt, goodness.